I think we're going live. We never quite know when we're live on Facebook. Are we live? I think we're live. I think it is definitely working. Is it going? I think so. Well, I'm going to assume we're live on Facebook, on Zoom, maybe letting more people in on Zoom too. But welcome to this pressure-free 5-day challenge. I've never actually put together a challenge before. I've put together deep dives, but this time I'm doing something a little bit different. If you've been with me before, um, I thought to kick off before we really launch into summer here, that we would do some, and here comes some more people, that we would do some um, very specific systems of tools that are going to really help you um, just clean some things up as we move into summer. And so I'm just going to mute you. Christine's got it. Yeah. We're live on Facebook for anybody who's here on Zoom. And then I'm going to open up at the end. So come on into Zoom if you're not here already and you're on Facebook and want to come in because we'll do questions and answers at the end. We'll go straight for about 30 minutes here. So we're going to do systems of tools, again, to kind of clean things up so we can have a really great summer. That is what I'm thinking about for this challenge here. And I'm going to give you very specific things to work on each day. And then we'll come back and do a little bit of debriefing on that each time. I'll be sharing some thoughts about it. Tonight, what we want to start with, we're gonna do three things. I'm gonna do a little bit on the actual method, the pressure-free method, the 3 steps of the method for anybody who's new. So you're gonna have an idea of how simple this is because we are so complex. So we'll do the method, and then I'm going to share specifically about some emotions. And it's these emotions that in this challenge, day one, we're going to take a deeper look at least one of those. You get to choose. And that's what you're going to start to just kind of take a look at over the next 24 hours. What are you noticing with that particular thing? And then I'm going to give you a system of tools to start interrupting the stress response right away here, have some action taking place. So 3 simple steps to the pressure-free method. The first are targets. What are you aiming for? So what is it that you would like to see happen for yourself and pick whatever time frame you wish. Also, what is it that you don't want? Sometimes you can derive what it is you want to aim for by taking a look and saying, I just don't want this anymore. I don't want to have this particular feeling or this particular behavior in this situation, or or a particular disease. When I started Pressure Free and I started making my list of targets, at the top of my list of targets were 3 diseases that one or the other of my parents had. And I just didn't want to have that. So my mom died of breast cancer, and my father had heart disease and diabetes starting in his 30s. So, and I remember so clearly how he thought that he was so how should I say, just wanting so much to break the fact that he didn't want either any of his children to have diabetes the way he had. So his aunt, my Aunt Amy, lost her foot and her toes on the other foot, and she was completely blind. So we saw it as children. And so my father, it never got to that point with him, but he also died fairly young. So when I was making my lists, like, I just want to stay really as healthy as I possibly can. And I really would like to stay away from all 3 of those things. So that was on my list. So what's the opposite of what you don't want? In my case, it was to have a really beautiful, healthy life. And I actually wrote that as my target. So if you want to just take a moment here, and if you're watching the replay, feel free to pause this video at any time. But if you can just jot down 1 or 2 things that as you think about these summer months, or, what over this season of summer would you like to see happen? What's important to you? What is a target for you? So that's step 1 of the pressure-free method. By the way, when I created this method, I didn't even have that step at first, but I realized, and you'll hear people talk about this all the time, entrepreneurs especially. What's your why? If you don't have a driving why as an entrepreneur, you're not going to make it past year one. I'm 15 years in business now, so it's pretty interesting to watch that journey. My sons are celebrating their 10th year in business. They started at 22 and 20 when they started their business, and so many businesses like that fail in the first year, first 5 years. So it takes tenacity, and it takes vision. By the way, it's really hard to sometimes have vision. So if you even feel stuck in this moment about what a target is, I'll just share that sometimes I'm working with a new client and they'll say, Elle, I just need to feel happier. I just need to feel like I've got a little bit more control of my emotions than what I do right now because it's not good. And sometimes they'll say they're a hot mess of stress. So what's the opposite of a hot mess of stress? Maybe your target is emotional. It's like I want to be more confident. I want to feel better. I want to be more calm. So it could be words like that too. There's just this is all open for what you want to decide as a target. So I built this as the first step because it is like the fuel for the next two steps. Can always come back to the fact like, oh yeah, the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to have these diseases, or I want to feel this, or I want to achieve this. Okay, so targets first. Second step are triggers. When I started this, people didn't really use that word. Now everybody uses it, which is great because everybody understands what it means. But in this specific context, it's understanding or noticing what could possibly cause you to trigger the stress response, the fight or flight stress response. But there are a few other F words here. So, by the way, if you ever feel like you need to swear, that could be a clue that you're on the edge and may trigger the stress response. So, so watch for that. So we have fighting, and like you might be aggressive and want to fight when you trigger the stress response, or you might be a fleer. You just want to get out of the situation or get back to bed and pull the covers over your head. I once coached a teenage girl who the first 3 sessions, she couldn't even get out of her bed. She was in such anxiety and depression, like she couldn't leave her bed. This was during COVID. It was like a mess. So, so fleeing is something that we do. Freezing, like deer in the headlights. I just working with a new client, they're like, I'm so unfocused. Like that's a real big deal for me when I trigger the stress response. So lack of focus. It's another F word. Um, oh, this is a good one. So I got this from one of my clients who is an adult who was diagnosed with ADHD, and she had gone to a conference and she goes, you need to add fib, Elle. So we'll make up little lies to cover our butt. Um, I remember very clearly, like someone asking, like the boss will say, "Oh, do you have that project done yet?" And you'll say, "Oh, it's almost done," and you haven't even started. So I shared this with a client just the other day, and they got caught because they went to open the Google Doc for the project. They said, "Yeah, I've almost got it done," but they haven't even opened the doc yet. They opened the document. They went to the document and they needed to request access, so they got caught. I got caught terribly once too. It's so embarrassing. And so we're gonna get to shame in a moment, but that's a little one to notice. Are you making up little lies just because it's like, oh my gosh, the truth is just too painful? Um, and then another one is over flattering. So you'll see this with groups of kids where there's like one kid that just wants to belong so much, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I love your sweater." Oh, I've seen it at women's conferences. Like there'll be a group of women talking, and there'll be a woman trying to get in. She's like, "Oh, what a great purse!" Like we're over flattering because we just want to belong. And when we're in fight or flight, one of the greatest fears is that we will be ostracized from the tribe. Like we'll be outside. And so that flatter thing comes up because we want to belong, we want people to accept us. So those are what I call the F's of pressure free, and they can help you define what your targets are when you notice that you're moving into these feelings, these behaviors. But what I've really came to understand as I put this all together was that certain emotions that put us on the edge and make it really easy for us to trigger. So those emotions are ones like this. I call them the A's: angry or annoyed. And notice that's on a continuum. So you could feel a little bit annoyed, a little bit annoyed, and then you're like full-blown hot angry. Also, one person's annoyance is another person's anger. I was working with a family of four one night, two teens and adults. And I asked them of these A's, I'll give you all of them first, then I'll finish the story. So angry, annoyed, anxious, afraid, ashamed, or argumentative. So I asked them, like, what's your chief A? What's the one? And so the mother went first. She said, "Oh, it's definitely anxiety. I get anxious about things. I worry too much." And the two kids said that theirs was also that. They get anxious. And so it was now the dad's turn, and he said, "Oh, I get annoyed." And they all started laughing. And they looked at him and they go, "No, Dad, you get angry." And this man with tears in his eyes turned to his children and his wife and said, "None of you have ever seen my anger. I stuff that down. What you're seeing is me being annoyed." Unfortunately, let's see, was it 3 years ago? In his early 50s, he passed away of a heart attack. And I can't tell you how many times his wife texted me and emailed me that she wanted me to work with him, but he wouldn't do it. And to this day, I wish I could have been with him and had him understand how to not push it down. So with pressure free, we're not pushing emotions down, okay? We're not pushing emotions down. We feel these emotions, and all we're doing is preventing the release of stress hormones. We're preventing the stress response from releasing stress hormones in our body. So we're not pushing emotions down, but the anger will get really hot when we do trigger the stress response. So, what's your chief A? When you take a look at those A's, when you think about them, so angry, annoyed, anxious, afraid, and those are a little bit different, by the way. So you might have feelings of anxiety about something, but then you're afraid of snakes or afraid of spiders or mice, or you're afraid of escalators. Kind of became afraid of escalators because something happened with my mom on an escalator once, and so that's like in my head. And so what is it that causes you to feel anxious or worried or nervous? And then what are you afraid of? Um, Shame is a really big one, and it's a sneaky one too, because shame can be things that you did years ago, decades ago, and the story rolls back up into your head and it just starts spiraling because of something you did a long time ago. And, I want you to give yourself some grace in this moment for if you have some of those things, some of those memories where you're like, I can't believe I did that. You said something or did something that maybe it was out of character for you, or it really hurt someone and you just still feel responsible for it all. And so, whatever is there when it comes to shame, one of the reasons we say things and do things that we later regret is because we have triggered these hormones. They shut down our cortex and our hippocampus, so we do behave differently. It's not your real self. I've had so many of my clients say to me, "Elle, you help me find like the real me, like my real self." And that is the self that isn't under the influence of these hormones that I'm mentioning here. So I want you this for the challenge part of tonight. I want you to pick one of those A emotions. So angry, annoyed, anxious, afraid, ashamed, or argumentative. What do you argue about? We tend to have patterns of arguing. So we'll argue about money, we'll argue about time. Are you being late, early? Um, we'll argue about dirty socks on the floor. Things out of place in the house, chores not done, all kinds of little things like that. So maybe arguing is the one you want to pick. But I want you to pick one of these. And over the next 24 hours, I just want you to very gently, like you can take a piece of paper and write down all the things that you notice that make you feel that emotion. So for me, if it's annoyance, I would have a very, very long list. I was coaching a girl once, she was 17. She covered an 8.5 by 11 sheet on two sides when she was listing out her what was causing her to trigger the stress response in the tiniest little spider writing you've ever seen. And then she's just like, she's kind of embarrassed by it. And I go, oh, don't be embarrassed, but also don't be overwhelmed. So when you do this exercise, if you have a lot of things, I really want you to give yourself grace and not be overwhelmed by it, but realize that just by having some realization and some assessment about these things that are causing you to feel a certain way, especially if it's one of these emotions or anyone like them, so frustration, that goes right along with anger or annoyance. All of these emotions are kind of like putting you on the edge, and you may or may not trigger the stress response. My dream for you is that you don't. Because if you can stay clean of releasing these hormones, every cell of your body is going to rejoice. Your whole mental way of being is going to rejoice. Your whole physical way of being is going to rejoice, because literally those hormones affect every single cell of your body. And I don't have time to go deeply into that. I go really deep with it with my clients, and when I'm giving workshops, because it's cool. Like for me, I think it's really cool to understand why we feel what we feel. But in this challenge, we're going to get real specific and laser. So A emotion, what's causing you to feel those A emotions? My chief A is definitely annoyance. And I spent a lot of time in 2010 really noticing all the things that made me annoyed. And my breakthrough with Pressure Free was about the 8-week mark, which is why I've built my programs the way I have, because and I say 6 to 8 weeks, but I've had people have breakthroughs in as little as 4 days. So we're gonna say it does take 6 to 8 weeks, but for me, I noticed the changes in my body and in my behaviors at the 8-week mark. That's when things were really, I was like, oh, this is different. I actually gained an hour and a half to 2 hours in my day too, because all of those emotions I just mentioned, they take up time. They take up an enormous amount of time. And when you're no longer locked in them and you've no longer released these stress hormones, then you literally are clean on the inside and you're not taking up all this time, like still thinking about the argument, 3 hours later, 10 hours later, the whole next day. There's a wonderful researcher, Dr. Marianne Legato at Columbia University, and she did some wonderful, really some of the first studies on stress and gender, and to understand that this stress cycle that I'm always teaching about, for males, it's an up to 9-hour cycle before all the hormones are completely dissipated out of the cells and you're back to normal. And for females, it's an up to 24-hour cycle. That's a huge difference. It's a huge biological difference. That's why a biological female may be still in the fight the whole next day. And chances are we've triggered again and again and again. Like, I'm upset because you're not still upset, right? Like that kind of a thing. So, um, so pick your A and grab a sheet of paper, and for the next 24 hours, just kind of notice what makes you feel those things. And if you have some, you make some success of that and you want to choose another A, go for it. Like, we're just trying to identify what some of our possible triggers might be. We have to see and we have to notice before we can do anything about it. And I love to say acknowledgement will set you free. And some of the things that are my triggers are so stupid, to be honest. It's like, oh my goodness, I've been overreacting to this thing for like 40 years. Like, what's wrong with me? And I got really hard on myself, and I don't want you to be hard on yourself. This is an exploration. It's like an investigation. And we can't change the past, but your past does not define your future in any way at all. So whatever has happened back here, just be kind of soft with yourself, gentle with yourself, and be like, well, wow, I will smile and go, well, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that I was triggering over dirty socks for 40 years. Now they're my own socks that I'm finding in the bedroom floor, whatever. It's still a thing. Um, and so now let's get to a tool tonight because every one of these 5 nights I want to give you a little tool system that can be really helpful. And the tool system I want to give you tonight is the newest one that I've just built. It's called SWIM, and it means switch internal mindset. And I think it's very apropos for what I've just shared with you here about the A's. So what you're going to notice when you figure out these things that cause you to trigger the stress response, and I'm going to pick annoyance again. I'm going to pick the dirty socks. So I say, okay, so dirty socks, right? Um, just by knowing that, so I have a past habit of triggering the stress response because there are dirty socks on the floor. With the swim, I want you to put your hands together. You've stated that clearly. Whatever in the past is something that you want to clean up. Put your hands together and like swim out like this. I'll explain why this is important, but just make the motion, okay? And while you're making this motion, the phrase is, but I'm now open to the possibility for the fact that, so I'm now open to the possibility for the fact that in the future, I no longer trigger when I see dirty socks or whatever it is you want to put, what it is you want, what it is you're clearing up. So the reason this is a motion like this is because one of the fastest ways an adult can open new neural pathways in their brain is an unusual gross motor motion. It's got to be kind of big, okay? And so I'm having you go like this. Oh, by the way, I just saw this motion with something else recently. It was kind of almost the same thing, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can't even remember what that was now, but anyway, I figured this was a good one. And it's like you're clearly opening to possibility, and at the same time, you're cleaving the past and the future, if that makes sense. Like you're separating them. And you're making a decision. And you know, when we make a decision, we're cutting off other avenues. Like you're making a decision that supports your future. So here's one, like an anxiety for me for years was about breast cancer. That was a very big anxiety for me. And so when I'm open to the possibility, like that's a game changer. And the other thing I realized as a coach is that many of the people that I coach, some of them are coaches too. Like I'm working with an athletic coach right now. Um, here's where the person is we're helping, and we want them to be here. And there's some coaches on here too, like a lot of coaches on here. So we're trying to go from here to here. And what I realized was a bridge is often missing. We can have some steps, but sometimes people feel so much overwhelmed, they just can't make that leap. And that's why I came up with swim. It's like this open to possibility. Our brain loves the words open and possibility. It's like, okay, like I think I can be open to that. People want to be open. So if you can kind of feel that, then it's like, okay, this thing I'm trying to build here in the future, it could be possible. And that's all we're doing here with swim is really opening up the possibility, but also separating past and future so that you can really feel future for yourself. So that's what I have for you tonight. Identify, oh, well, let's go over the 3 things we did tonight. The first thing with the 3 steps of pressure free. So targets, triggers. Oh yeah, step 3 is tools and the 10-second solution. So when you experience any of these A emotions, you have about 10 seconds to interrupt the stress response before the adrenal glands will release their flood of hormones. So 10 seconds is plenty of time for you to swim. And it's kind of funny, so hopefully you smile. And when the corners of your mouth go up, you release neuropeptides in your brain. Those neuropeptides will keep your cortex and your hippocampus working for you. So if you've ever noticed things like you meet someone and 5 seconds later you can't remember their name, That's because your hippocampus, your memory center is shut down. You can't lodge and retrieve memory very well. It's not because we're stupid, right? And the name is Jack. It's like one syllable, right? Why can't we remember that? I've been there so many times. It's like, but pressure free now? I actually memorized about 30 out of 35 people on a website before I went in and coached them, and I knew their names. If I had not been pressure free, I wouldn't have been able to do that at all. I can memorize music in minutes that usually take me months. So it's fascinating what this thing is able to do. I just heard that 99.9% of our brains are exactly the same. So pick any brilliant person that you may put on a pedestal or emulate. Your brain is almost exactly like theirs. The big differentiator is, are you triggering the stress response? So much is possible for you. So this swim tool is to open up possibility. And we're going to start dreaming big in this challenge too. But this is just a start for you. So targets, triggers, tools. Hopefully you wrote down a couple of targets, just a couple that you want to see happen this summer. Triggers. What are some of those? Pick one of those A emotions and what are some of those things that are causing you to feel that? Get really clear about some of that. And then step 3, just start using the swim tool. If it's not appropriate to make a big motion, just lift the corners of your mouth a little. Also lift up your ribs a little bit. Those two things will really set you into a great frame so that your brain says, oh, there's no reason to trigger the stress response here because you got those neuropeptides going. And when you lift your ribs up, you elongate the front of your body. When we go into fight or flight, we tighten and coil. So that's just a little helpful thing if you can't actually make a big motion like this. But big motion is going to get things going for you. I have a couple of big motions I teach my clients, and I was just talking to one the other day. I mean, she worked with me years ago, and she's like, hey, I'm still using that tool. Works really well. So this swim tool could be real powerful for you. If you come on Zoom, and for the people who've if you're watching this on Facebook, like, yeah, I signed in, I'm just caching it on Facebook. Anyone who's signed in, I'll be preparing a worksheet for you so that you can actually start to do some of this work. And I will send that out this evening to you. And tomorrow we'll have another little training, and then we're going to have another little challenge. So your challenge right now is just to write down what makes you feel one of those A emotions. It's the one little piece. I don't want this to be hard for you. I want it to be easy. And I want you to gain success right away too. So play with swim, write down your A's, and write down a couple of targets too. That will get you started. And I will see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Have a great night. And if you're on Zoom, stay on with me here. Let's see. I've got to find this.